Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Foster.
Good morning.
Welcome to Spazio Fondazione Telefonica. Please take a seat.
Sure.
Did you know this building? Did you know the Fondazione Telefonica building in which your exhibition is going to take place?
It's a great heritage site. I mean, you can see the structure revealed, and the structure will be part of the exhibition and celebrate the building 1929, tallest in Europe in its time, a fusion of American engineering, Spanish architecture. So a wonderful, integral part of the exhibition.
Great. Well, before the interview, I'd like to give you a little something that we've taken the liberty of buying you, because I think you know and you might enjoy.
Good heavens. A flashback in time, back to my youth. Inspirational. Cutaways, the future, science fiction, and what was happening at the time. No, great inspiration. Thank you.
Well, Common Futures is your first exhibition in Spain, your first exhibition with your foundation. What are we going to find here? What is the main discourse of the exhibition?
Perhaps another side of the kind of projects that excite me. Obviously, the tallest, the highest, the longest, but this is about continuity, demonstrating that the social imperative and technology as a means to social ends. Issues such as climate change, inequality, the smaller projects which can make a big difference, and really showing the recurring themes over a 50-year period, whether that is ecology, talking about a green architecture before the word was even invented. So everybody's familiar perhaps with our experiment in Masdar, which is showing how in a desert you can sustain with solar energy a university, 24 hours, 7 days. What is not known is that in the 1970s, we were pioneering projects about recycling, breathing buildings, buildings that would work with nature, concepts of small centers for health, for well-being, which anticipated a project like Maggie's, a small care center. So a lot of the later, bigger works are rooted in smaller projects, and those smaller projects continue now and into the future. So really the exhibition is about looking to the future, but as somebody said, perhaps to see the future, first you have to look far back. And if you look far back, then you see continuity. You see the same themes repeating. And maybe now we can do some of the things which were dreams before. In the same way, the things that are now possible that we take for granted as a society, in my youth, were science fiction. I mean, the science fiction of this book.
Right. The exhibition is divided into 12 chapels. Each chapel holds 2 of your projects, one from your earlier career, the latter from more recent works. They all address issues that have concerned you all over the years, like technology, wellness, sustainability, mobility, form, culture. As you were saying before, did you feel like some kind of visionary, in a sense that many architects have integrated those aspects in their discourse now, but you were talking about them and writing about them 50 years ago?
Yes, I mean, in that sense, I've always believed that the quality of design in buildings and infrastructure, the public spaces that connect the buildings, the transportation, together, those can address major issues of the day, whether that's climate control, inequality, and that the quality of design affects the quality of all of our lives. And that, I believe passionately, for as long as I've been studying as an architect, practicing as an architect. And when I was asked in the foundation, what is my advice to young graduates? And that's stay a student. And I tried to stay a student.
Right. aircraft, planes, flying, again, a constant in your career, and also something that is present in this exhibition. The main alley is about movement and flying. Still passionate about it.
Yes, I mean, those are private passions, whether that's flying a sailplane aloft on solar power alone, a very beautiful object and a beautiful experience, or whether it's riding a bike or going cross-country skiing. But in a way, all of these inform my life as a designer, and working together with colleagues and bringing together different disciplines, because there are important lessons, the ability to do more with less. So whether that is about light and lightness, mobility, all of those things fuse together. In that sense, my personal life and my professional life kind of merge.
Right. This week, Apple's new headquarters opened up. It was your project. It's a building that looks beautiful from very different perspectives, but also from above, from the air. That's something that you always pay attention to, that your buildings look beautiful from the air. Have you thought that nowadays with Google Earth, Google Maps, drones, cheap flights, anyone can enjoy a building and its beauty from above?
Yes, I would. I think that the whole thing about mobility, what we can dream today will be reality tomorrow. So the drone capability that, as you say, captures Apple from the air and is so new, totally new. In no time, those drones will be automated.
Right.
They'll be carrying people. They'll be the aerial Uber. So we are seeing these extraordinary changes. And to repeat the conversation earlier, there are important lessons from flight and mobility, and the way that that fuses into the architecture of the future, which is around the corner.
Right. I'd like to talk about technology now, again, present in your work. There's a chapel which addresses technology in the exhibition. I would like to share with you a quote from a Spanish famous anthropologist, Juan Luis Arzuaga. He reckons that what we call technology today is what we used to call 2 centuries ago, magic. Do you agree with this argument?
I would, most certainly. And also, technology has existed as long as civilization has existed. It's not something new. And some of the things from the past would defy us today. To create the cathedrals, for example, I mean, that was space-age technology centuries ago. So technology as a means to a social end, and technology in terms of improving the quality of life, creating clean energy, reducing pollution, addressing climate change, all of these things are linked together. And coming back yesterday from the iProduct launches, the Apple opening, and just looking at the capability of something that you could hold in your hand would not that long ago have occupied this entire floor in terms of computing capacity.
Right. Okay. Right. You've carried out several projects in Spain. At the moment, you're working with El Prado, I believe, in the Hall of Realms. Can you tell us a bit about this project?
I think that the Hall of Realms is an extraordinary opportunity to be able to link the various elements of the Prado, bring them closer together, to link the Prado closer into the fabric of the city, its public spaces. So we start from the outside and we work in. And within the new Prado, the Hall of Realms, will be a gallery at a scale which most cities don't have. Madrid certainly does not have at the moment. So it's this fusion of the old and the new, and bringing this historic building and the most important spaces back to life.
The first project of your foundation is in Rwanda. It's a drone port. It's an initiative that is very focused on the social needs of the community and its location. Is that the kind of project that you're going to be working on in your foundation? This
Yes,
project with a social
it's a
twist.
humanitarian project, and it's about marrying cutting-edge technology with a community building initiative, creating a new kind of building. The ability in a country which lacks a transport infrastructure, doesn't have a good road network, fragmented railways, to deliver urgent medical supplies quickly and economically. And the drone port combines that with a kind of civic presence, a community center, a market, and a technology which will enable the community to build. And we demonstrated that with a prototype cell at the Venice Biennale, which is now a permanent pavilion. And interestingly, that borrows from the very same philosophy of creating habitations on the moon, because essentially you want to use the material which is to hand, combine that with an additive. In the case of the moon, it's using robots. In Rwanda, it's harnessing a community workforce.
Right, we were talking about the project in Rwanda and how it also works as a hub where people from the community can communicate and get together.
Yes, the drone port is a new kind of building. So it receives the advanced technology of the drones, which can deliver urgent medical supplies, but it becomes a hub for other social activities, a market, a meeting point, maybe a medical center, recharging the drones, mobile phones, communication in a wider sense.
Right.
Now we go with the questions sent by Ferran Adrià. As I said before, he admires your work. I believe you admired his as well. And he sent us a couple of questions. The first one is about what he calls creative longevity, which is basically to stay constantly creative. How do you achieve that? How do you deal with that?
I like to work with younger people and to interact. I enjoy teamworking. I enjoy bringing different disciplines together with a shared set of values and objectives. I enjoy the discourse and setting shared objectives and a belief in the team. I sometimes try to explain this with a cycling analogy, and that's the peloton. And the peloton as a group is more demanding to work as a group, but you go faster and longer.
So that's teamwork, in fact. Yeah.
It is the essence of teamwork. But it also needs good leadership.
Right.
The other question sent by Ferran has to do with your with the moment you are in your career. As an architect, you've accomplished pretty much anyone can aspire. What makes you keep going? What makes you get personally involved in projects that need your time and effort and are often complicated?
I think it's the creative process and also engaging with the end users of a building, those who represent them, those who commission buildings. In many ways, I remember, for example, Steve Jobs' words, don't think of me as the client, think of me as a member of the design team, as a member of your team. And that was the reality. And of course, once the team expands to that, then it becomes a very engaging, very inspiring process. Quite tough, but very satisfying. And of course, when 8 years later, you start to see the end results of that, as we did 2 days ago in Cupertino, then that has, to use your words, a magic of its own.
Does that happen very often? Like people who want to hire your services want to be part of the project itself?
In the best cases,
in
definitely,
the best cases,
yes.
Right.
In other cases, that's simply not possible. I mean, if you take a large airport project, you do have a project leader, but that governing body, that commissioning body, is a large body. So, so it's not always possible to have that very, very
Close.
direct.
Right.
But in the end, as part of that process, you are engaging with all the parties, the different parties in the venture. That's more complex, of course.
I guess. Before asking you what we got from Twitter, I will ask you to explain to us what is Instagram for you, because you're a big Instagrammer. You post photos, you use it. What is it about this?
My young son last March said, "Dad, you know, there are a lot of people out there pretending to be you. And why don't you do the official Norman Foster, the real Norman Foster?" So I started. It seemed like a good idea. And I think that I'm intrigued by the feedback. And the feedback is very, very interesting. I mean, I posted one about I'm designing with my son a mechanical pencil. And I even got drawings back in response saying, "Have you seen this pencil? Here's a drawing of this pencil." So I enjoy the feedback.
Right, so you do read the comments?
Of course, yes.
Okay. Right. Well, I've got one question from Victor from Twitter. Well, he argues that physical space is limited, the Earth is limited, and we're still not capable of living on the moon. Do you think that architects will ever have to work in virtual spaces?
In some ways, we are working in virtual spaces. We're using the technology to better understand the three-dimensional reality of a space before it's built. We're using the tools to be able to simulate the movement of air, to be able to explore how we can make buildings feel better, work better, consume less energy, produce less pollution. And of course, it's known that we're working with the European Space Agency on the moon, with NASA on Mars. But there are so many challenges that remain unaddressed here on planet Earth. So I don't think architects are going to run out of things to address.
Okay.
Not anytime soon.
Nowadays, with social media, we live in two realities. We live in the real world, but we also live in a virtual reality that happens on the internet. Does that have an impact on your work?
Yes, but that digital world finally has to come down into the physical world. In the end, we can extend our vision through devices like that, but it comes down to the physicality of the environment, and that is still a fix.
Okay, another question from Twitter. What is the relationship with the clients in terms of, I mean, your work has a strong amount of creativity, if you want, and people might request something and you have a different view on the project.
That's fantastic. That's to be encouraged. You need as many viewpoints as possible. And I've never found, ever, that if there's somebody who is commissioning a building and feels passionately and strongly and wants to be involved, that produces a better building, without question.
Okay, got another question from Eva from Twitter. Do you ever go back to your previous works? Like, I don't know, how do you feel about the Bilbao subway now, the Bilbao Metro, or previous works you've done?
When I go back to the Bilbao Metro, I feel great. Because for me, it's very satisfying to see that it is so well looked after, that there is a pride in it. And you ask about my feelings on returning to past works. And sometimes...
No remorses?
Well, sometimes you see a building which has changed perhaps beyond recognition, because those who commissioned it have given way to those who've inherited it and see it differently. And sometimes the architecture might get lost under posters, under shops, if it's an airport, for example. But then you go to another airport in Beijing or Shanghai, and it's beautifully cared for, and that's very rewarding. So perhaps it's like anything in our lives when we revisit our past. Sometimes we're cheered up because it reminds us, because it's there and it's testimony to something which has, endured. In other cases, perhaps it's changed. Things have been pasted over it. And it's changed its nature. But that is life.
People modify your work as well. It's part of the process.
It interacts with it, yes.
Right.
Sometimes it survives, sometimes to a lesser degree.
In terms of integration, what's been your biggest challenge? Integration with the location of the project, with its human geography, with its environment?
I think all design assignments have their own challenges, and different ones for different reasons. If I take the Reichstag, for example, one is dealing with a chamber full of politicians, and the challenge there is they have to agree, but they've never agreed on anything in their lives, because by their nature, they have to challenge, question, and disagree. So here, for the first time in their careers, they have to agree. Now, that's a challenge. But the outcome has been very positive. So.
But the other challenge is the purpose of the building itself.
Yes, I think...
Coming into agreement.
Yes, I mean, again, sometimes a building is a bit like a marathon. It's over a long period of time. And the best buildings come from continuity. The lesser buildings, perhaps, you can have over several years changes of the people who are running that project. This can happen in bodies like universities and so on. Sometimes you get the continuity, and the original vision, maybe of a vice-chancellor or a president who's commissioned the building, perhaps is different from those who, through changes, inherit it. It doesn't mean that the building doesn't work. It just means that over time, perhaps some of those ambitions have been diluted.
Okay. And let me finish with one about the future, a constant in your work. You've always been like 2 or 3 steps ahead of the rest. You were worried about things that we were not worried about 30 years ago, and you proved to be right. How do you envisage the future now?
I think it's really continuing to address the major issues, and through design, through infrastructure, continuing to address issues of climate change through public space, through buildings which will harvest energy, will consume less energy, and demonstrate an optimistic, positive future to improve the quality of life for all humanity.
Is there a particular city or town which you think that is doing fairly well in those terms, in terms of preparing itself for the future?
I think the future of our society has to be cities. More and more people live in cities, and the majority of the world's planet will be eventually living in cities. Madrid is a beautiful example of a sustainable city. You can walk easily, it has good public transport, it has a climate which you can work with and create buildings which breathe. It's the ideal European compact city with a great quality of life.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Foster. Thank you for your interview and for your time.
Great pleasure.